Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel today. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to get into it in just a moment, but for now, let's do a little icebreaker while people log on. I am Joni. I'm here from MSP today. We also have some amazing panelists and sales leaders. You'll get introduced to all of them in just a moment. But first and foremost, let's talk summer plans for a second. Let's go ahead and pass to Grayson. Do you have any summer plans you want to share?
I do, Joni. Thanks for asking. I'm going to Hawaii with the family week after next for 5 or 6 days. So we're going to the island of Kauai, north side of that island, which I think is the best place in the world. So we'll be there for a week.
That's amazing. I've been to Kauai only once, but I agree that the north side of the island was absolutely incredible. Okay, let's go ahead. Scott, any summer plans coming up?
I can't stack up to Hanalei Bay. I got nothing on that.
That's fair. Me either.
I'm shuttling my son to camp. That's my summer plans.
There it is.
Fun. Where's camp?
All over.
All over. Okay, gotcha. That's a busy summer. Okay, let's go to Donya. Summer plans?
Donya, you're on mute, I think.
Are we there now?
Yeah,
we got you.
Good check. Okay. Yeah, I'm mostly helping support my husband on a really long bike ride that he's taking. So I'm gonna do the car part.
Nice.
That's a good plan.
And you're currently at a lake house, right, Donya? So you're embarking on your summer plans already.
Well, for me, I mean, it's an interesting question. A whole lot of the summer plans have been executed. They're in the rearview mirror.
Right. Yeah. What was your highlight? Do you have a top number one?
Well, I had a great time at a summer camp with a big alumni reunion thing. That was, fun stuff. It's kind of boring for a lot of people maybe, but the Tennessee mountains are fabulous, and that's where it was.
Amazing. That sounds beautiful. Okay, great. And where's everyone calling in from? I guess we might as well cover that as well if we're talking about plans. Donya, where are you calling in from?
Southern Virginia, and I can't tell you any more than that. I'm not sure where I am.
We'll take it. That's a good way to be. That's how you know you're in summer mode. What about you, Grayson? Where are you at?
Southern California.
Beautiful, nice and sunny. And what about you, Scott?
Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay, great. We got both coasts covered. Perfect. Okay, before we get too far into all of our summer plans, we can go ahead and get started. I think we've got some more folks who have joined us now. So as you know, today we are here to talk about the secrets from the sales leaders, 9 resources to optimize your comp management with these amazing panelists. We are so excited about the amazing content and the takeaways that you will get out of this event. And before we get too far into it, I will risk pointing out the potentially obvious and let you all know that today's event is indeed sponsored by Modern Sales Pros. So for those of you not familiar, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest 27K and growing highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership, sales and RevOps, sales enablement, aka the short version is our Modern Sales Pros. And our mission is to create an environment for members to answer questions they'd struggle to solve on their own and help them see around corners they may not know are there. We do that through live sessions like this one, an online forum, our quarterly summits, and we are getting back into in-person events, so keep an eye out for those coming to a city near you. And if you're not already part of MSP, you'll be invited to join after this event. So enough about Modern Sales Pros. Let's go ahead and talk about today's amazing sponsor, Performio. I'm going to hand it off to Grayson to say just a few words about his company. So Grayson, go ahead.
Thanks, Joni. I'm Grayson Morris, CEO of Performio. We are an incentive compensation management software platform. If you need help automating your sales commission calculations and giving great reports and dashboards to your sales team, give us a shout.
Awesome.
Is that enough, Joni? Is that good enough?
I think you did good. You'll get into the juicy stuff later on. So I think that's just great. As far as the logistics of today, we have a couple housekeeping notes. The first is that this event is indeed being recorded, so you will be able to access this on the MSP previous events website. You'll receive an email from me later with the link, so don't worry about that. And second, if you have questions for our panelists, and we absolutely hope you do, please pop them in the chat or just tell us where you're calling in from. Tell us your summer plans. Really, we want to make this as interactive as possible, and you get what you give. So let's all chat. Toss those questions in, and we'll get to them later on during the event. And now for the reason that you are all here, we have our amazing panelists. You've heard a little bit from them earlier, but for formal introductions, first up we have Donya Rose, Managing Principal at the Cygnal Group. Donya, go ahead.
I'm a sales compensation plan design consultant. That's the beginning and end of what I've done professionally for over 20 years. I've designed the comp plans for over 200 companies or sales forces. And to me, it's a never-ending, delightful puzzle to figure out the best way to put it together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donya. And next, we will go to Scott Werstlein, SVP of Sales at OpenSymmetry.
Yeah, and OpenSymmetry is a solution integrator, so I'm perfectly in the middle here. I take Donya's designs and implement them in Grayson's system. So here today to talk about the operational efficiencies we gain from automating your incentive comp program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, we have Grayson Morris, CEO at Performio, who you heard from a bit before. He'll be your moderator for today's panel. So Grayson, I'll pass to you to introduce yourself and take it away from here so I stop talking, and I will see you all at the end. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much, Joni. And Scott, Donya, really excited to have this webinar with you guys today. Thanks for doing this. I've already told you guys who I am, so I won't belabor the point here. Let's go ahead and get into it. So you guys, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna share basically nine charts with you that are super insightful, that kind of help you dive into your comp plans and understand what's going on with your sales performance and your sales comp plan design. And so Scott and Donya are the perfect guests for this particular conversation. Scott, I'm going to start with you. Talk to us about what you see. You know, you consult with hundreds of different companies across the globe. You know, you've seen kind of what most people are doing out there around their incentive comp plan designs and their incentive comp plan administration. And of course, you've seen, you know, the all-stars, and you've taken companies from good to great. What's the common practice and the best practice in this world?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I've been in the space automating compensation plans for about 20 years. And I can tell you that, you know, it's an interesting space because comp administration tends to be underfunded. Ultimately, it's not generally seen as a revenue driver. And I think that that's a common misunderstanding. And part of what happens when it's underfunded is a lot of companies have manual processes or very fragmented processes that wind up not delivering results to the sales teams in an accurate and an actionable way, or frequently enough so that they can course correct within the period, you know, much less enabling folks to make strategic decisions with that data. You know, I've managed compensation at Bank of America Investments and CA Technologies, and I can tell you once you get this data centralized in a platform like Performio, it then really enables the sales teams to make some actionable decisions. It enables your annual processes as you look at what you're going to tweak with your compensation plan designs with someone like Donya here. And, you know, so ultimately the problems that we normally see with getting a business case together, because ultimately what we'll see is Performio is the system that takes you from a common practice to a best practice. And like I mentioned earlier, how do you get the results out to your management team so that they can coach inside the period, so that your reps are not maintaining shadow ledgers and constantly questioning the comp, right? We want to get them out selling, and having trust through transparency with the field is paramount. And again, that is what these systems ultimately enable from a field standpoint. Now, there are a couple of different, you know, teams, I guess we could talk about as far as the benefits of this that it brings to the organization. And we generally kind of silo them into these three areas. So for your administrators, your operations, we have a saying that we say you want to go from admin to analyst. Again, today, most of these folks are plowing through spreadsheets. We're barely able to get the paychecks out the door. We're cobbling together analysis rather than really putting together meaningful analytics. And so when you deploy these systems and gain those operational efficiencies, those plan administrators and operational folks are able to really free up and start doing meaningful work as opposed to just jockeying Excel workbooks around. Now, executive leadership are the folks that are really then looking at the centralized results and how that's comparing against the company data. And I'm sure some of you have this experience where you start to look at that data and it's already 2-3 months old. So it's already dated. It's already so laggard that you're really not looking at something that you can immediately take action with. And so again, having this centralized is therefore going to be able to enable executive leadership to look at mid-year. Do we need to course correct? Are there things we need to do within the year? And then as we enter that annual planning season, what are the right levers to pull, and how do we make sure that we're getting ROI for those comp plan design changes that we make? Now, the last group we talk about, and I've hit on a little bit of this, is again, just ensuring that the field trusts how they're getting paid so that is not creating noise in their day. It's not taking their time away from going out and closing opportunities. I think we could all agree that if you're uncertain about how you're being paid and if you're being paid correctly, then you start to try to become an accountant. And that's not ultimately what you want these teams to do, much less have your managers be able to have the data at their fingertips to go and coach and do what you're paying them to do, which is not just manage the phonetics of a pipeline, but actually go and improve the team that's out there selling for you. So the impacts of automating are really profound and really have a wrinkle effect across the organization that ultimately enables your go-to-market strategy overall.
Great. All right. Thanks, Scott, for that intro. We're just setting the stage here, everyone. So what we're going to do today, we thought we'd kind of have some fun with this. Everybody talks about all these great reports and dashboards you can get out of an incentive compensation management system, but there's not a lot of resources available for you to actually see what those reports and dashboards are. Like what are the insights you can get out of automating your sales comp with the software system? What are the different insights you can get in terms of the performance of your team? So that's what we're going to do today. And we've got Donya here as our expert on sales comp plan design. And so she's helped me a lot with these, and Scott has helped me with these as well. And so we're going to go through 9 charts. And we're going to discuss both the key findings, what do we see from these charts, and then the key actions. What's the action you want to take based off the findings on these charts? Scott, are you ready?
We're ready.
Donya, are you ready?
Totally.
All right, let's do it. All right, here's our first chart, you guys. This is what's called attainment distribution. So what you can see here, this is a histogram, right? So it plots on the y-axis is the number of different territories that fall into each of these attainment buckets. And so I'm going to let you guys look at this for a second. And then Donya, I'm going to start with you. When you, as a sales comp expert, someone who's steeped in sales comp plan design and sales performance optimization, what do you see when you look at this chart?
I see 2 things. I see, immediately I see, oh my God, we've got serious underperformance. That big, tall bar hanging out at 60 to 70% of quota, presumably, indicates that the great majority of the sellers are not achieving their goals, which means 2 things that are bad for the business. One is it means that the business is not getting the revenue that it was anticipating, assuming your goals are set in some alignment with your annual operating plan. And the other thing it means is that your salespeople are not earning their target incentive or anything close to it on average, which means if your target incentive is set at market, you've really got a lot of people who have no good comp reason to stick around. So this is a picture of a real problem in that way. In another way, this is a beautiful picture in that it's a very nice bell-shaped curve. Sometimes you see these crazy bimodal distributions and other stuff, but this looks like an in-control system in the sense that you've got a somewhat normal-looking distribution. The whole thing is just shifted way too far to the left. So what this all boils down to when I look at it is a quota setting problem that's got to get fixed urgently.
Yep. Scott, any comments from you?
Other than, it'd be interesting if anybody could drop some chats in. If people are able to really perform this today, I'd be interested to know how the bell curves are looking, or if, they're able to pull these sorts of results together.
Yeah. Look, I think so. Donya, I think, makes a great point, right? Obviously, assuming this is the end of the year attainment distribution, and everyone's kind of the median is hanging around 60 to 70%. You've got underperformance, which is not good because you didn't sell as much as you thought you were going to sell, and you've got underpayment, right? Your reps aren't making their OTCs. So, Donya, I think this is something on everyone's mind out there, at least who's involved with sales comp plans. What is normal in terms of achievement or attainment? Like, where would you want to see this curve centered? Let me ask two questions. Where do you typically see it centered, and where should it be centered?
That's a great way of asking it, because the difference between prevalent practice and best practice is pretty significant. So people who do what I do, and there are many of us, and we talk to each other, have been running around for years saying you want 60% of your people at or above quota. Well, that's a nice thing to say, but in the reality of seeing how people actually pay, the reality is that across a lot of industries, the middle performer hangs out between probably 85 and 95% of quota. And specifically in SaaS software, it's closer to 85%. And there are some industries where it can get close to, or maybe even a little bit above quota, depending on their practice. But the truth, the maximum motivational value of your plans, and if you believe that motivation causes more sales, then therefore the maximum actual production from your sales team comes from goals that everyone walking into the year rationally believes they could meet or exceed. Mm-hmm. And if, in fact, at the end of the year, most people don't, and that happens year after year, you are taking the wind out of your sales comp plans.
Yep.
And you are therefore producing fewer sales than you otherwise would have. So, and what with most of your people, if you can get your median person at or above 50, if half of your people I should say it that way, if half of your people are at or above 100%, then call yourself a rock star.
Yep. Okay. So typically you'll see kind of in that 80 to 85% where the center of the curve, but you'd really want the center of the curve at the 90 to 100% and above. And so just kind of, if you're out there listening to this and you've done this kind of work on your own comp plans, there you have it. There's your key action. Revisit territories, revisit quotas to shift this curve to the right to make sure you're both achieving the sales performance that you expect and you're paying your reps what they expect to make. Okay, so that was kind of an easy one. We're going to mix it up here. We're going to get a little bit more difficult. This one comes straight from you, Donya. This is the compensation cost percentage.
Real quick there, Grayson. We've got a couple of comments. One from Philippe here. I think it says how to establish correct quotas based on what. And Donya, that's a bigger than a bread box question there, but just want to make sure we kind of tick off a few of these. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I was watching those come in, and whoever knows how to establish correct quotas in a generalized way that could give that in a 2-sentence answer to this group doesn't need to be doing whatever job they're doing.
Well, maybe I know you have some resources that maybe we could send out, right? It changes by industry, right?
Yeah. The other thing I would say is hire Donya and Scott's companies to help you with that one, because that is a tricky one. It's all right. Let's keep it going. So this is Donya. This one comes straight from you. You like to use this with your clients. I had never seen this before, so I thought it was really cool. Why don't you describe what we're seeing here and sort of how you would interpret these graphs?
Okay, so what we got here is two roles in a pretty simple sales organization. It has two sales roles: account executive and inside sales rep. And we've taken all those people and we've divided them into quintiles, which means 20% of the salespeople are in each of those towers. The bottom 20% is in the leftmost tower, the next 20%, et cetera, the middle highest, and the far right tower is the overall total. And what we're looking at here, that's a fabulous way to divide up your sales team and to look at all kinds of different things, from attainment to payout to performance to production to, there's a lot of stuff you can do. But one of the things you can do is look at the comp cost as a percent of, in this case, revenue, which is a core measure in this example plan. The comp cost is a percent of revenue by quintile. And you see two different things happening here. The top one is what we would usually see in a well-designed plan. We would usually see that our lowest performers are the most expensive because they're getting all their base salary, but they're not producing enough. So when you take their sales and when you take their cost and you divide by their sales, you get a large number because they've got all that base they're sort of not absorbing. And on the right-hand end, when you get to that fifth quintile, you can see that even those people are making the most money by a lot, and they're probably into accelerators. So they're actually earning a higher rate than the other people. Still, they're a good deal for the company because they're selling more than their goal and they're not getting more than their base salary. So that's the pattern you'd like to see. The thing that you should come away with when you see that pattern, though, is that bottom 20% is expensive. And I need to be going after those people with coaching and performance management, and possibly considering some of them for placement into other jobs, including maybe out into the world. So that's a pretty typical situation. The bottom row is an example of when you see a dysfunctional situation that points to a plan design problem. So we're not seeing that pattern. We see a high cost in the first quintile, then it goes down a little more, and then wait, it goes back up as people start over-attaining. So what does that mean? That means that probably the acceleration in that plan for over quota production is inappropriately high. And I know the plans that this was derived from, and I know that that was in fact the problem that this kind of analysis pointed to. And it was a pretty straightforward fix, not necessarily loved by the top performers. So we had to do some other things for them as well. But anyway, looking at things, and in this case, the cost of comp by quintile can reveal a lot of useful information as you think about your sales team.
Yeah, I think this one's really interesting. So bottom line, even though the top performers and the AEs are presumably being paid a lot more money than those bottom performers, they're actually costing the company less per percentage of dollar they're bringing in, which is always, like, you always get the CFOs that are complaining about writing the big checks to the top performers, right? But this is the kind of graph you'd want to show that CFO and say, hey, look, these folks are actually less expensive on a per dollar basis. Any feedback from you, Scott, on this one?
No, none here.
Yeah, this is a really fascinating graph. I like the way you've done this, Donya. And of course, having all of your data centralized in an ICM makes producing this kind of a graph a lot easier than if it's in a big Excel workbook. All right, so this next one's actually pretty straightforward. This is something that a plan administrator would find helpful every month or every quarter, however often you guys pay sales comp. You're uploading a bunch of data into your Excel workbooks or your ICM systems. One of the benefits of an ICM is that you can run these kind of exception reports or validation reports where you can tell the system to show you every record. You might be uploading 1,000 different records for that period that you're paying sales comp on. You can just set a rule that says, hey, for every record where a specific field is 0 or null or blank, or even set an outlier threshold, show me, highlight that for me, show me that record so you can go back into your source data and correct it. So this is a real simple view. We'd call this like an exception report or a validation report, but it allows you as a plan administrator to go back into your source data and easily find out where the errors are. So pretty straightforward.
I think this, there's the garbage in, garbage out saying, and what this is allowing people to do is proactively trap that garbage and address it, fix it before you put it in front of your sales team, have them see it, produce a dispute, and start to erode some of that trust. So I think that's really one of the interesting things that this allows you to do, again, that trust through transparency and ultimately capturing these issues up front, fixing them before, you're passing that burden onto the sales team to let you know that there's something wrong.
Yep. I like that. Garbage in, garbage out for sure. I think none of us in this call are immune to you get a wrong data point in there and you end up paying a sales rep incorrectly, and it just creates a lot of problems.
But this allows you to trap it. So garbage in no longer has to be garbage out. Fix it.
Great.
Clean it up.
Okay. So we just showed you guys a few reports for the plan administrators that they would care about. We're going to now segue into the leadership. So executive leadership, CFOs, CROs, CEOs, what are the kind of stuff they care about? So I'll start it off with this one. This is basically the total incentive paid out by month. And that's an actual is the red line, and the budget or the plan is the blue line, right? So this is something your CFOs are going to care about. So Donya, I'll start with you. What are your kind of overall impressions from a graph like this?
Well, I like this chart in part. When I'm not hanging out at lake houses where I don't know where I am, I live in Chapel Hill. So basketball's the thing. And this is the kind of chart you can see as a game goes along, and you can see how the score swaps. And it gives you a sense of the pace at which things are changing. And so in the same way, I look at this chart and I see, there we are with the budget and the actual tracking, not exactly on top of each other, but pretty close as the year goes by. Then something happens there in June where the payout starts to really get above the budget, and seems about the same in July, and then it really peaks in August. And now all of a sudden, I'm not just kind of sitting back with my arms crossed looking at this chart. I'm saying, somebody go get me an answer. If the answer is we just spiked sales and things are fabulous, then cool. If not, I need to know what's going on here. And so this is, I know, something that the audience doesn't know, which is that this is a 2-pack. There's another chart coming up, which is the drill in, but this is a beautiful highlight of a need to go after additional information.
Great. Yeah, and you set it up perfectly. So the takeaway on this chart is, and again, you can actually produce this kind of a graph from your accounting software, right? There's probably nothing here that you need specifically to go into your comp plan or your comp system. However, if you want to drill down, which we're going to do, let's drill down and see what's going on here. So Donya, talk us through. Now we're drilling down by product for the month of August. We're saying, hey, what's going on in the month of August? Why is the actual payout so much higher than budget? Talk us through what's going on here.
And now we immediately see that it's a little higher, but it's been a little higher across the board for the other months. So that's not surprising that it's a little higher in hardware, services, and support. But look what's going on in software. So that's where it is. We can just like that, we can see that's where the payout spiked. And now we've got to drill into what's the performance that went with this software. So we aren't going to take you all the way down the rabbit hole and pull out the one salesperson who did something amazing with software, which is what you want to do eventually. But this is where you start the steps to go look into what happened. And so now we immediately know where we need to go farther and understand.
Perfect. All right. So you'll want to continue to drill down, but now you know the problem is in the software. And by the way, I shouldn't even say problem. The discrepancy is in the software products. And it's like you said, it's possible somebody just knocked it out of the park and sold a bunch of software and got into their accelerators, and that's great. And if that's the
kind of need company performance on there to a certain extent, right? To see if payment is actually now out of whack with company performance, not just the preset budget from January. But yeah.
Yeah, totally. You're right, Scott. A better graph would show both actual revenue and budgeted revenue on top of that to see what's going on with revenue. But yeah, this is just an example, you guys, of how you can use an incentive comp system, sort of start to drill into these graphs, look what's behind it, and sort of get to the root of the issue or the root of a discrepancy. All right, so we'll keep going here. We're still now on executive leadership, so we're going to go to our next chart. What this is the total incentive rate or percentage of the deal and the amount of the deal. So on that left axis there, so let's look on the x-axis. The x-axis is all the different companies that this particular company sold to in the month. So whatever, there's 12 or 15 deals there. The left axis is the amount of the deal, so the total revenue of the deal, and then the y-axis on the right is the total percentage of that deal that was paid out in incentive comp. And so it's a little, I'll just kind of pause and let you guys take that in. But the blue line is the incentive rate, the green or the red bars are the amount of the deal, and you can see the different deals along the x-axis. And just to further complicate this graph, we've added the number of different payees that are being paid on each of these deals on the top. And so, Donya, per usual, I'll start with you. Kind of what are your takeaways when you look at a chart like this?
Yeah, so I look at this and I see a wide range of different amounts of the deal size. So that's not terribly surprising, but that's there. And then we start looking at the incentive paid as a percent of the deal value. And we see a lot of things that kind of look like they are friends and know each other and act the same way over on the left. Then we see that Apple deal really spike, and everything else kind of, and maybe the Macy's one is a little higher than the rest of them, but you got to go in and figure out what's going on with the Apple. So the first thing you're going to think, if you're the CFO, is you're going to say, oh, this is what's wrong with our system, right? This is that situation where we're paying so many people on every deal. Everyone's got their hand out. But in fact, when you look at the number of payees paid, you can see that the Target deal had the most actual people paid, and some of the, what are the Genea, I'm not sure I know how to pronounce that, or Veritone. Maybe it's Veritone has got 6 people being paid, and that one, wasn't particularly unusual. So we're not explaining it by the number of people that got paid. We don't know the answer yet, but we do know when we look at, this is another view of costing of comp, and this time by deal, and we do need to go understand what happened with that Apple deal. I mean, was it a fabulous deal terms that got him a kicker? Was it, there's a lot of things. I won't reel off all the things I can think of, but at any rate, has to be explained.
Yep. It definitely starts to point you in the direction of what's going on at Apple. Something is unique about that deal where you paid out over 10% of the revenue on that deal was paid out in incentive comp, but you didn't pay a lot more people. You only paid 5 people. So that's pretty standard. Scott, any observations from you on a graph like this?
I think the number of people paid on a deal is a number one question that a lot of our clients can't answer before we implement these systems. So, I think because of the different teams that get spread out and the different way that those payments get distributed, the total expense is definitely a number that a lot of people can't speak to at all before we centralize this onto a platform.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the most interesting pieces of information that come out of an incentive comp system. How many total people are actually being paid on this deal? I got to imagine, Donya and Scott, when you have these conversations with your customers and you ultimately figure out that answer and you tell them, there's probably people that are shocked, right, about the number of folks that are getting paid on an individual deal.
Yeah, it can cause a little bit of a stir.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes.
Yeah, they're like, wait,
the snarky thing I like to remind them is, I was going to say, the snarky thing I like to remind them is that, if they've got an annual incentive plan for the whole company and they're paying everyone on EBIT, then excuse me, but you just paid the whole company on that deal. So there's that. But, but anyway.
Yeah, great response.
Here's one metric. This is not part of the chart, but I can't help dropping this in, which is a really interesting measure of that is just to take the total sales credit given for the whole organization, say for a quarter, say revenue credit, which obviously has duplicates of the same deal over and over, and divide that by the actual revenue for the quarter. So total sales credit given divided by actual revenue for the quarter, that gives you a single number, which is on average how many people were paid per deal. And that's a metric that can be tracked quarter over quarter, and there can be an intention to try to reduce that number if that's something the business thinks is good. So that's just a measure you might use.
Yeah, great point. All right, let's pause to take a question here, you guys. Alok asks, and maybe I'll point this one to you, Donya. Alok asks, is it atypical for companies to have compensation plans, quotas designed around specific products? So different plans, quotas, comp plans around specific product. What do you think?
Let's say it this way. Most companies have some sales which are more valuable to them than other sales. And that can be higher margin, better deal terms, strategic customer category, or specific product lines, strategically important products. And one of the most important things you can do with your sales incentive plan is focus your salespeople on the most important sales. And therefore, yes, it's very smart to be sure your comp plans do direct that effort, but without making them overly complicated, without being too granular about how you're going to do it. So yes, it's important to emphasize certain sales, and that could be certain products with your comp plan, which would involve having intentions, goals, productivity, expectations for each of those things. But it's also very important not to be so granular that people can actually win by majoring in one of the categories and getting into the accelerators while they ignore the others. I've seen a lot of companies thinking that they're focusing effort or requiring selling across product lines when they're actually paying people to major in something. So careful how you do it.
Good. Yeah. Well said. If you got 20 different products, you don't want to have 20 different quotas and OTCs for those. So consider grouping those products into the most profitable ones and incentivizing those. Okay, let's keep going here, you guys. Donya, this is another one straight out of your world. I love this one. So what we see here is we see 9 months along the x-axis, and that represents the tenure of all these different reps. They didn't all necessarily get hired on the same date, but we're sort of normalizing the data and matching them all up to the month that they've started. And then you see their production. So Donya, take it away. What do you see on this chart?
So each of these circles shows you the actual sales in each month by how long these people were in the role. And what you see is a steady climb from their first hire. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have any pipe. They're getting their bearing. They sell maybe a little bit. And then as the months go by, they get more and more capable and they sell more and more. So this is first devised to answer that question, that everlasting debate. I've sat through way too many hours of this in my life. Of, what should our new hire ramp look like? How long does it need to go on? What's the right answer? And the right answer is in the data. So you look at the history, and what this would tell you for this particular business, you can see that by month 7, these people have kind of hit their stride. The middle person, it kind of levels off and they stop doing that dramatic increase. So you would say, yeah, they probably need a little support in their variable pay plan for the first 6 months. The other thing you see is how the attainment dispersion starts to increase as time goes by. So you get more and more over and under the middle by farther and farther as time goes by, till that sort of stabilizes around month 7. So the next analysis, which we haven't got to show you, but just so you start thinking about it, is to go back and see if it's the same people down at the bottom, and how soon in the progress through these months can you detect which people are likely to sort of not make it, so that you can either apply extra coaching and development or move them out into a different role that's more suited to them. So you can go farther with that. But the big takeaway here ought to be that you can do this analysis. This could be 3 years of data, and you've got all these new hires over that 3-year period, but you just sort them all out by the months since hire and do this chart, and you'll find out some interesting stuff.
Thanks, Donya. Scott, anything to add on that one?
No. I mean, having a hire date, right, gives you that ability. You normally have that from your HRIS system, so that's the data points you use to then normalize it and figure out how long they've been there.
Yep. Yeah, and I think this is a key question. By the way, this is a chart that maybe a sales manager or a CRO might want to look at, but it's always a key question when you're putting together your plans, right? Like, how long do we expect our reps to take? What percentage of their attainment do we expect for them to achieve in that first quarter that they've been hired, the second quarter they've been hired? This is the type of chart you'd want to look at to get the answer to that. And of course, if you're a sales rep and you think you should have a draw or a guarantee longer than 2 or 3 or 4 months, you just take this kind of chart to your CRO and go ahead and ask for it, and you'll have the data to back it up. All right, let's keep it going here. We've got a few more minutes. So we're going to switch now to actually some, actually, we'll do one more here. Let's do this one. So this is a stack rank of, again, this is a sales manager might care about a chart like this. It's a stack rank of all the different sales reps on that person's team or that manager's team. And it's showing the percentage to target payout that that rep is at. And so we sort of added some information to this, which we put a red dotted line and where the on target would be for the year, right? So let's assume this is happening in like maybe, September or August, and they're partially way through the year, and you can look at what each person's been paid relative to their target incentive. Donya, what do you think? What are your takeaways from this one?
This just helps you really see how it's dispersed over time, where your underperformers are, who they are, who needs some more focus and attention. It's just the kind of thing that I don't think there's a lot I can reveal about this chart, because it's very straightforward, which is a wonderful thing about it. But it's sort of the sort of chart you hope your sales leader, sales manager is walking around with that thing just sort of stamped into the back of their eyeball, so that they see it in their mind's eye all the time. because this tells them a lot about how to direct their effort.
Well, yeah, and I think it's very common for sales managers to have a graph like this for just overall performance, right? Like, hey, how much revenue have you generated, or how many deals have you done, and stack rank that by sales rep. But it's less common for them to do it by their payout, right? And as you have more complications in your comp plan, as you're selling more products, and it's not always pure revenue is correlated with payout. You want to be aware of the reps that are just feeling underpaid, right? These bottom three, Jordan, Phillips, and Porter, they might be selling a lot, but maybe they're selling a lot of deals that aren't super incentivized, aren't paid out at a high rate for whatever reason. So even though their revenue looks like they're generating a lot, they're not feeling like they're being paid enough. So they're at risk of quitting. So you might want to dig into that and check them out. So I think that's always interesting too. Scott, anything to add on this one?
Something I always think that's interesting in dealing with companies is, do they show them the names? Do they show them where they rank? How do you then spin this into something, that then helps motivate the rep?
Yeah. Well, that's a great segue into the next dashboard. This one's actually straight out of Performio, our system. And this is a view that a lot of our customers choose to give their sales reps, which is more of a leaderboard. And again, sort of having an ICM makes this really, makes this possible. It can be dynamic, and you can choose the set of criteria by which to stack rank the different reps, whatever you want. It can be total revenue, it can be total dollars made, it can be total widgets sold, whatever it is. But yeah, Scott, what do you think? Would you show your reps how they stack rank against everyone else on the team, or would you keep it anonymous?
I'd show them where they are. I wouldn't show them where everybody else is.
Yeah. It's always obviously you can do both in our system. You can anonymize the other names, or you can show them. It's always interesting to see what sales managers decide to do here. But yeah, you can see if you're going to make President's Club, you can see how many different reps are on your team, what their percentage attainment is. So again, just another thing an ICM makes possible, you guys, is this dynamic leaderboards to help gamify the whole sales experience for your team. I mean, Donya, anything on this one you want to add?
One idea is, I've got one client that has struggled with this recently, whether to show the names or not. And their conclusion was they were going to show the top 10% names. So they're going to hand out the glory, but they're not going to hand out the shame.
Yeah.
And I think they're pretty happy with it so far.
Yeah. That's a good middle ground to stake out. And you're like, look, we're not going to embarrass the bottom 90%, but we'll call out the top 10%.
No wall of shame.
Yeah. By the way, if you're listening to us, if you're still hanging on here, I'd love to hear from the audience on that one. Do you think it's worth? Do you think you got to anonymize the names, show the names, or just show the top 10%? Let us know. All right, guys. Last chart here. Again, this is kind of a fun one. This is a fun one for sales reps. Again, some sales managers love to show this to their sales team. Some, frankly, don't. But this is what we call a what-if calculator. You can do this in an ICM system like Performio, where you can let a sales rep kind of type in what they're gonna, in this situation, this rep might be typing in that they're gonna, sell $162,000 worth of product in June. And then you can show them, hey, what's your total payable? What's your total incentive that you're going to get paid out on? And so a lot of times sales managers like to expose this to the sales team to get them even more motivated. Hey, if I close that big deal, if I sell that additional revenue, what does that mean going to mean for my checkbook or my wallet? I don't know, Donya, Scott, have you guys ever played around with these with your customers, these what if calculators?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's kind of follows that same correlation back to the leaderboard. Do you want them playing with this? Is it helpful? Are they going to sit in here and fidget, or is it really going to direct them to the most highest revenue generating deal for them and the company? I think is the idea for pro, and then the other one is, are they just going to fiddle with it?
Yep. Well said. All right, folks, there you have it. Those are the 9 exciting charts that you can pull out of an incentive compensation management system. Obviously, there's a lot more to be pulled out. There's a lot of data you can get out of these systems. But once you've got them implemented, there's just the world is your oyster in terms of the analytics and the reporting you can do. So I'll pause there. If there's any additional questions, I know we've taken a few as we've gone along here. Fire away. Otherwise, oh, here we go. We got something coming in. All right, we've got some poll results. It looks like top 10% so far is the winning. If it's the winning response there. Any additional questions, fire away. Otherwise, I would just say, Scott, thank you so much for joining it. We really benefited from your experience. You say 22 years in incentive comp? Or is that
2001? I started implementing these systems, so call it 22, I guess.
All right, and then Donya, similar with you, right?
Yep, I just say over 20. I haven't added it up recently, but yeah, it's over 20.
Yeah, at some point. Okay, well, one final question here. So, what is the most effective conversation to have with an account executive when you decide to give them full on-target earnings for a quarter? I don't fully understand that question, Melanie. So the question is, what's the most effective conversation to have with account executives when you decide to give them the full on-target earnings for a quarter? I'm assuming, is that when they didn't deserve to get their full on-target commission, but you're paying them anyway, Melanie? Maybe you could clarify that one for us. Did you guys have any comments on that question, or you want further clarification? Oh, okay. So she clarified. Yeah. So I guess if
I don't really understand it.
I think what Melanie's getting at here is that sometimes sales managers, decide to actually pay out the full on-target commission even when a sales rep didn't deserve it. So Melanie, first of all, I would say you're very generous. That's very kind of you. Your sales team is very lucky to have you as a sales manager. But Scott and Donya, any feedback on that one?
Well, I think that having these systems is what enables you to eliminate those subjective one-off type decisions, playing favorites, and so it brings audit and compliance to these things. Well, and so I would say that should not happen as much when you get into this, because where else are they now saying, why are they doing it? Well, we've given you the results. We've given you the ability to coach and manage through it. So why am I now going to pay you out?
That's a great answer. And then, of course, because if they're a good sales rep, they will give you 5 reasons why you should absolutely pay them out. But you at least have the data to back you up.
We've facts, right? You've got the facts.
We have been showing you your results every week for the last 12 weeks. So don't come to me now and tell me you need your full OTC.
That's right.
Yeah, good question. Good question, Melanie. All right, you guys.
There's another one here from, when does it make sense to move from Excel to ICM, from Cliff? And normally we see the business case, somewhere in that 50 to 100 payees. And really what you start thinking about in terms of how do you continue to grow your sales team without having to grow your admin and operations team, right? So you want to be able to have an automated process that scales, and I don't have to add admin headcount to add 30 more salespeople and some of those. But that's generally, when we see people start to clip over 50 to 100 payees, there generally starts to be enough need to get yourself a system in place that's not Excel.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Scott. And that's consistent with what we see in the market. If you have 20 to 30 folks in your company that are being paid on, by the way, this is everybody on incentive comp, right? So you got your account executives, you got your BDRs, you've got your sales engineers, you've got your sales managers, your VP of sales. You very quickly can get to 50, even if you only have 20 to 20 plus account executives. But yeah, I would totally agree. Around 50 seems to be the point where it starts to make sense, and certainly by 100 is where it really is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions out there? Are we good? All right, guys. Look, I want to make sure to give you a little bit of time back in your day, so I think we'll end it there. Thank you so much for joining us, Johnny. Do you want to make any last comments here to the audience?
Yeah, I think
there is one more from Ben. I don't know if we want to try to squeeze it in here. How do you commonly see plans that pay out over an extended period of time rather than all at once? So maybe, Donya, talking about upfront payments versus stretching it out over maybe the Rev Rec, if you pay them a little at booking and then, maybe once you see Rev Rec.
There are a lot of different ways to do that, right? And the sales comp theory says you should finish paying the salesperson when 2 things have happened. One, they've done most of what you want them to do about that deal, to the point that you'd rather they focus on something else, and primarily on something else. And number 2, you know what they sold. So for example, if what they're selling is a contract for a rate without a volume commitment, you can't pay them all up front because you don't know what it's going to be worth you could estimate it, but then there are lots of problems with trying to do that. So then you would have to pay them over some period of time. The other is if you actually want your salespeople bird dogging the thing from close the deal to get the first payment in, or to full implementation, or to customer acceptance complete, then you finish paying them at the point where, for most deals, you want them to redirect their focus to another new deal instead of continuing to bird dog that because you've got other people project managing it, doing collections and stuff. So that's kind of the guidance. Now, a lot of companies do pay out over time. A lot of them will cite a cash flow reason. I could make a pretty coherent argument why that doesn't make any sense, because in steady state, it doesn't change anything. But that's longer than a 2-sentence answer, but maybe the principle there will help.
Yeah, great response, Donya. So both when they're done with their job on that deal and you know what the deal is, go ahead and pay them. Just bite the bullet, pay them, let them move on with their lives. All right.
The one thing I would add, and this can also help here, is you kind of have to understand your default rate if if you have that long period, and that can also start to tell you. But I think it's pretty common that you would see that spread out in a long deal cycle for whatever reason. If it's semiconductor design wins, if it's communications where they book it and then they upsell it throughout the installation, most of those plans I think commonly have some extended payment.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Scott. All right, Johnny, you want to end it here?
Yeah, I think we are all set to go. Thank you, everyone. I know it's always awesome when we get to share actual resources and talk through them there. So I hope you all got some great takeaways out of this one. Again, I'll be following up with everybody and sending you the recording. Thank you so much to Performio and to our speakers today. I appreciate you all. Those of you who are on this call, you don't know, but beforehand we had many a tech issue to work out and everything came through for you at the last minute. So we appreciate you all for being here. Thank you. Have a great one. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.